Good evening. I'm B.S. Bhullar, Director General, Civil Aviation, India. First of all, let me welcome this distinguished guest here, Honorable Dr. Benard Aliu, President, Council of ICAO, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Arun Mishra, who is the Regional Director, ICAO Asia Pacific Office, Bangkok, the representatives of the DGCA and Civil Aviation Authority representatives. I think 35 countries are represented here. EASA and European Commission representatives are here. We thank you here for this roundtable, only for exclusively of the DGCA and for issues which are related to safety and other issues which are of common interest. Before we come to the agenda, which we have finalized after discussing with all the stakeholders, I'll request Honorable President to have the starting, the few words and the guidance for the gathering before we come to the formal agenda. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abula. And let me again express appreciation to India for hosting this Global Summit and for the organization of this roundtable meeting, which I believe will bring out many important issues. Prior to this meeting, I had the privilege to meet with a number of ministers where we had discussion on a number of issues. I drew their attention to the significant improvement we are seeing in the effective implementation of ICAO standards under the No Country Left Behind initiative. But I also took the opportunity to advise them that I'm been trying to encourage ICAO to focus attention on something completely new, the subject of innovation. Where our industry is undergoing significant transformation, and we are having in the industry to engage with not traditional actors, not the airports, not the airlines, not the air navigation service providers, not ACI, not IATA, not Council, not ICCIAA, but other actors like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Uber, the drone manufacturers, the drone users, issues of artificial intelligence, issues of blockchain, commercial space flights. And these are new phenomena that we have to grapple with every day. And it is opportune time that we as ICAO provide some level of leadership to be able to respond to the needs of our member states who have to engage with new stakeholders to address these emerging issues. So accordingly, as I mentioned in my statement today, I've asked ICAO to organize an aviation innovation fair that will be held a few days before the assembly, where policy decision makers and director generals like yourself will be able to relate with these companies, with these organizations, as a starting point for us to have a framework and a platform to engage with them globally, but also nationally, because I know these are things you face every day. Many of you have been asked to provide regulations for drone technology, to approve projects like the Google drone, and it's the first time for you to address some of these issues. I'll be looking forward to hear your opinion on some of these issues, maybe at this meeting. But importantly, I'm sure the focus today will be on aviation safety, on COSIA implementation, on the traditional things. The innovation item that I mentioned is not a substitute for No Country Left Behind. It's something we'll have to do pari passu. I'm not saying we're going to be issuing out new regulations or new standards, but it's important that we start working on providing a platform and a framework to engage and to share best practices what is happening in one state can be of assistance to another state. But that would be more discussion during the assembly, and towards the assembly, you hear more from me about that in the ensuing months leading to the assembly. For now, Mr. Aromisha will take us through the other issues. But before I conclude, I want to express my appreciation to all the Director Generals that have responded to the initiative on No Country Left Behind and the focus on implementation, because there have been significant improvement in all our member states, in all our regions. The average global effective implementation for safety has significantly improved. When we started, it was about 60%. My hope is that by the assembly time, we'll have about 68%. I've seen states jump from 10% effective implementation to 60%, from 20 to 70. Most of these have been recognized by the Council President's certificate, and the same development is taking place not only in safety, but in security. Now, of course, COSIA is going to be a major challenge, but we have worked very hard to prepare states for its implementation. But we will hear more from Mr. Aromisha on that. On that note, Mr. Bula, thank you so much for providing this opportunity.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Arun Mishra, Regional Director of ICAO, the Asia Pacific region, based in Bangkok. I have a presentation. I know it's not the best time to have a presentation because it's already 4:30, more than 4:30, and all of you are tired, so I'll try to make it as short as possible, giving you time for interaction. My presentation basically relates to three areas: safety, next generation of aviation professional, and CORSIA. So these are the three major issues I'm touching on, though there are many more. And my presentation will also use a lot of examples from Asia Pacific region where we are. And there'll be some references to the global aviation, but many of the examples will use the example of Asia Pacific region, which is one of the biggest right now. Next. Next. Yeah. So with over 1,400 scheduled airlines, 26,000 aircraft in service, 3,900 airports, and 173 air navigation service providers, aviation has really established an unmatched global network at the service of travelers and businesses in every corner of the world. Next. So if you see the global picture, the economic impact of aviation, and this has been talked about today in the morning, and I need not emphasize more on the major economic impact in terms of jobs, the GDP, and which most of the governments have started realizing. So in terms of geographical distribution of traffic and revenue, Asia Pacific has overtaken all other regions with a share of 33.9%, it's a yellow one. The region also experiencing a huge growth due to economic growth, liberalization of air transport, growth of middle class, low-cost airlines, amongst other factors. So keeping in mind that safety is a top priority for aviation, the challenge is to increase air navigation capacity and efficiency to accommodate rapid growth, yet at the same time mitigate the risks associated with the operation of more aircraft within a fixed amount of airspace. ICAO's aspirational safety goal is to have no loss of life attributed to aviation, which again will only get more challenging as we continue to put more flights in the air and safety on the ground. Some states are facing challenges to fulfill their aviation safety oversight obligations adequately while the industry is changing and becoming more complex. If we move at business as usual mode, then the gap would increase, resulting in a negative impact on safety. Different regulatory systems, inefficient overlapping audit and certification program require a rethink of the current safety oversight principles. States need adequate, credible, and flexible alternatives in developing capacity for all their safety oversight functions, particularly rulemaking and safety management systems, in order to close the gap and improve safety. So coming to the implementation, the key issues, which is very much common to most of the regions, is our greatest challenge on a sector-wide basis over the coming decades virtually all derive from how aviation will need to evolve in order to manage the doubling of capacity now being projected through 2030. All of our current goals, whether tactical or strategic, political or economic, will be magnified significantly by this expansion, as will the implications of the actions to take to address near and longer-term connectivity challenges in terms of increased airspace and airport congestion, and the risk to safety and efficiency of air transport operations in general, and growing environmental pressures relating to greenhouse gas emissions, local air quality, and noise around airports. Then there is also the potential challenge of dealing with shortage of pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, something which I'll come to later in this presentation. Furthermore, the expected rapid evolution in new technology advancements and the applications across all air transport domain will become a dynamic challenge for regulators and operators in the years to come. Slow progress of implementation of air traffic service infrastructure not corresponding to traffic growth results in traffic delays at airports and in flight. It also leads to inefficient aircraft operations, environmental concerns, and safety issues. I would like to take this opportunity to point out the challenges facing the region in development of safe air transport in view to accommodate increasing air traffic in Asia. The first challenge is to increase capacity in airspace. Due to lack of capacity in airspace, specifically ATS routes in border areas, departure delays are reported in major airports in Asia. It has also resulted in inefficient operations leading to non-economical flight operation. ATS route network in many states in Asia have made small incremental changes over the years and has not increased its capacity to correspond to the growing traffic. So I already mentioned the need to improve and modernize ATC systems and infrastructure, which has now become critical. Modernization of ANS infrastructure is not commensurate with the traffic growth leading to safety concerns, and further ATC systems, tools needs upgradation to enhance safety and to minimize ATC human errors and reduce ATC workload. Now, the other challenges are implementation of PBN approaches on instrument runways. We have lost our chance because we were supposed to do this long time back, and still it's just 64% implementation has been done. Then you have the potential ADIZ implementation, which is Air Defense Implementation Zone System, which is also creating complications in recent times in airspace organization management, and also air traffic flow management, which is, we have a regionally agreed air traffic flow management framework, and any divergence by the states affects the ATFM harmonization. Then the failure of some states to implement performance-based communication and surveillance provisions may have implications for regional activities in airspace capacity and efficiency, and the maintenance and updating of regional supplementary procedures. The absence of effective trans-regional ATM systems across regional boundaries will also have implications for activities in the field of ATM as well as inter-regional coordination activities. So, now this is the next slide is about the current and emerging challenges. You see these are some of the emerging issues: global tracking, cyber security. I will not say emerging issues, they've already arrived and they are at our doorsteps. And the next ones are mental health and other related issues, which are also coming very close to us, and most of us really don't know how to deal with them. So this is my slide on the cusp of new approach, something which the President was talking just now. The speed of technological advancement exceeds how our society or policies change. The drones are already here, and it's undeniable that new technologies such as personal aerial vehicle would become reality one day. It's a matter of time the change would come whether we like it or not, and its speed gets faster and faster. So we need to prepare ourselves to confront the wave of change, prepare ourselves to be the enablers. So we have listed some actions to be taken. These are what we think are priorities. The first is the importance of placing aviation in the heart of national development. As mentioned earlier, air transport has become a catalyst for economic development and a vital engine of global socio-economic growth. And many states now include aviation in the national development plans and position aviation as a strategic priority for the development of countries. Countries like Australia and Singapore have placed significant importance on aviation as an economic driver. More and more states in the region, such as China, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, have now placed aviation as a strategic priority for the development of their economies. Many air navigation service providers in the Asia-Pacific region are still both owned and operated by the government bodies that also regulate them. Proper separation between the regulation and service provision functions, particularly in the ANS provision, would enable air navigation service providers to concentrate on the delivery of efficient, cost-effective, and customer-oriented air navigation services. Increased participation in ICAO regional meetings and ensuring feedback to ICAO state letters and surveys are important ways to keep in touch with ICAO and work together with ICAO. I mean, we need to remember that ICAO is your organization. The third point is initiate NGAP initiatives to address the shortage of qualified technical personnel, particularly for safety oversight and accident investigation. We in Asia-Pacific region have a seamless ATM plan for the region. And while we have regional strategies and technical guidance, states and ANSPs are expected to establish state seamless ATM planning and proceed with the implementation according to plan for harmonized operations. So we need to accelerate PBN implementation, review ATS route structure for enhancing capacity, expedite AIS to AIM transition, invest in ATM infrastructure and airports to alleviate air and ground congestion, and slow progress of implementation of ATS infrastructure not corresponding to traffic growth obviously will result in traffic delays and inefficient operations. My second area is I would like to talk about the manpower challenges in view of the huge growth. As you will see in the next few slides, unless we take effective measures, the projected growth will not be sustainable due to shortage of skilled, qualified professionals. There are serious implications of shortage of qualified employees, supervisors or managers in various positions in aviation industry and regulatory functions. Qualified available personnel are not available off the shelf. A lot of investment of time and money is required to prepare qualified and experienced experts who can ensure safety and security of aviation systems. This is the geographical distribution of fleet growth and aircraft movements. Now, While I said Asia Pacific region is a leader in fleet growth as well as a close second in aircraft movements after North America. Boeing predicts global aircraft deliveries of 41,000 aircraft between now to 2036. Asia Pacific alone is expected to get about 16,000 aircraft during this period, about 40% of total global demand. With these additional aircraft, the challenge of operating and maintaining these aircraft is a huge issue. Further, to complement the aircraft operations, we need augmentation in other areas like airports, air traffic control, ground handling, security, etc. The existing facility is not at all capable to support this major expansion. We might think that 2036 is quite far away, but I would like to say that it's just 16 years. It's not very far off, and we are looking at such huge expansion in 16 years. Unless we look at this, the manpower requirements and how to do it. I'll go one by one, and we just go to the next one, which is the pilots. The Asia Pacific region with considerable flight growth cannot match annual pilot requirements with the current training capacities. So there's an annual shortage of 9,000 pilots with the rate which we have current training capacities. To compensate the imbalances between regions, the response may be migration of pilots from regions with surplus to regions with shortage, supply-demand pressure. However, the differences in pay scale would make it unlikely for pilots in North America, Europe, to fill the void in Asia-Pacific region. Another challenge would be to train adequate number of pilots to become commanders. There are other challenges associated with pilot migration. The decision to recognize, validate, and convert the licenses of foreign pilots is at the discretion of states, and risk of lowering of standards by certain validating authorities, and the problem of varying quality of training. States have to start working with the industry to find innovative solution to the problem. Coming to the topic of the air traffic controllers, again, we see that we in Asia Pacific region will have 32% of world movement in 2030, and we cannot match annual air traffic controller requirements with the current training capacities. The result is an annual shortage of 1,066 air traffic controllers only in Asia Pacific region. Similarly, for maintenance personnel, we, with such considerable fleet growth, cannot match annual maintenance personnel requirement with the current training capacities. The result is an annual shortage of 14,700 maintenance personnel. Due to imbalances in labor costs among different regions, there is a tendency for carriers registered in regions with more mature air transport markets to outsource their maintenance operations to organizations in other regions with lower labor costs, leading to skewed development. The next generation of maintenance personnel will also need to possess strong IT skills due to technological advances in aircraft maintenance. Key skills include avionics, composites, robotics, HMI aspects. So, as you have seen in the previous slides, training infrastructure is not adequate to meet the demands being generated by the growth in the various regions. We need to focus on the core issues affecting the projected deficit of manpower. A career in aviation is not very attractive and aspirational to the next generation. The learning methodologies need radical changes to meet new challenges, and aviation training is very expensive, making it out of reach for most aspirants. Sorry. Lack of state incentives and support from industry to the training institutions like tax holidays, infrastructure grant, limited campus recruitment, etc., inhibit the growth of this important sector in the aviation ecosystem. Most industries and regulators do not have a robust long-term succession planning strategy, leading to seasonal balances in supply and demand of manpower. Again, if we follow business as usual strategy, then very soon airlines and other service providers in Asia Pacific region and other regions would be forced to cut down their growth ambitions, reduce services, defer aircraft orders, or seek mergers with other carriers. My next and last topic is CORSIA and its implementation challenges. As you know, CORSIA was adopted through Assembly Resolution 39.3 and is the first global market-based measure scheme for any industry sector. It complements a broader package in the basket of environmental measures for international civil aviation to address climate change and reduce aviation emissions. Measures include aircraft technology, operational improvements, and sustainable alternative fuels. Thereby, preference is always given to non-market-based measures. CORSIA addresses the remaining emission gap to achieve ICAO's global aspirational goals of carbon neutral growth from 2020. So what are the policies, rules, and regulations and guidance behind CORSIA? Very recently, the ICAO Council at its 214th session in June 2018 adopted the CORSIA Standards and Recommended Practices, or SARPs, as a new Annex 16, Volume 4. The CORSIA SARPs represent necessary action by states and operators, the what and when, to implement CORSIA. State letter has also been issued in July 2018, and through this, the SARPs are available to you. To further support the implementation of CORSIA, guidance for states and operators on how to implement CORSIA is available. This guidance is called the Environmental Technical Manual, Volume 4, which can also be accessed from the ICAO net. Both the SARPs and the technical manual are also publicly available through our specially designed and updated CORSIA web page, icao.net/CORSIA. The successful implementation of CORSIA resides on the availability of reliable information on CO2 emissions and on compliance with offsetting requirements. A robust monitoring, reporting, and verification procedures are necessary to ensure that CORSIA relevant data are collected, checked, reported, processed, and published by aeroplane operators, states, and ICAO. It should be emphasized that all ICAO member states with operators conducting international flights are required to monitor, report, and verify CO2 emissions from these flights every year from January 2019 started, independent of their participation in CORSIA. On the other hand, all ICAO member states participating in CORSIA offsetting must ensure that their operators comply with the CORSIA offsetting requirements every 3 years, starting in 2021, in addition to the annual CO2 MRV requirements. So with the adoption of CORSIA standards and recommended practices, capacity building efforts will now need to be strengthened if CORSIA has to be successfully implemented starting from 1st January 2019. In this context, ICAO has launched the ICAO Assistance Capacity Building and Training on CORSIA, which is called ACT CORSIA, programs launched in July 2018. In summary, ICAO ACT CORSIA is a comprehensive assistance program endorsed by ICAO Council and is designed to address specific needs in different time frames, as well as tailored to various readiness levels of member states. Immediately after the adoption of CORSIA SARPs in June 2018, an unprecedented level of contributions was expressed from a number of states to offer voluntary support to other countries in respect of ICAO regions. And it is the first of its kind that such CORSIA buddy partnerships are established in a short time. Again, I would like to re-emphasize the critical importance of making coordinated efforts under ICAO ACT CORSIA. It means that any bilateral or multilateral partnership among states needs to be coordinated and undertaken under the umbrella of ICAO in order to ensure the good quality and technical accuracy of information, as well as to monitor the global progress for CORSIA implementation in a timely and transparent manner. In addition, full coordination with IATA for the training of operators would be of paramount importance so that both states and operators will be ready to start this from this year. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is an urgent matter that requires resolute actions by all. International aviation continues to be a vital lifeline, and while we contribute to economic growth, access to humanitarian aid, and many other socio-economic benefits, let's move one more big step together to ensure the implementation of CORSIA initiatives to achieve ICAO's aspirational goal. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Would you like any of the members here sitting here to comment on these issues which you have highlighted? So on these three issues which Arun had made the presentation for, floor is open to any comments, any suggestion, any success story which might have happened. After that, there are other agenda which the members had requested us to take up in this meeting. Then we'll move to their 2-3 agenda points. We'll move to that. So at this moment, the 3 points which Mr. Arun has highlighted, any comment, any suggestion, any issue on those?
From the fact, I'll start with one that's challenging, but it faces every one of us, as the chart was put up there showing the need for training for pilots, maintenance technicians, as well as air traffic controllers. As you can see, the numbers from the United States are very large in the training and future needs of all of our development. And from the FAA's perspective, we've taken that challenge very seriously. Matter of fact, our administrator recently held a symposium, a national call to action, asking for help and partnership with industry in order to ensure training and getting folks more, people more involved at a very beginning level. And asking that it's not just going to take one part of the industry, but all parts of the industry to reinstate that excitement. We're faced with many challenges from new technology such as drones and commercial space that are getting the attention of our youth. All kinds of different technology. So how do we work together to renew that excitement, renew that interest in aviation at the fundamental level? And it begins not just when they go to college, but it begins when they first enter school, even at the elementary school level, junior high and high school. How do we engage students at the very beginning of their education and get them to understand that this is the track of a future that they want to engage in? And with that, we've been working very closely with a lot of our education partners, our industry partners, and across the entire United States to see if we can get a lot more interest in that segment of the industry.
I think the ideas which you have mentioned, they are very good and needs to be followed by some of the states. Already in our region, some of the states have started, popularizing aviation through the schools, catching them young, what to say. And there are aviation clubs set up in various schools where various kinds of activities take, so that they're for this thing. ICAO also, we also have a program called Next Generation Aviation Professionals. We promote these kind of activities through our NGAP program. And our now latest initiative is that we would like to, we have an assembly in our 75th year of ICAO's existence. We are also having our 40th assembly in September. And we are planning to have some youth focused events, and there will be a youth competition for aviation, and we are still finalizing what we are going to do. But we would like more and more youths to come to Montreal and participate in those kind of activities for them to get close to aviation and start becoming a part of aviation system.
Very good evening. Sanjeev Gautam, Director General Civil Aviation Authority, Nepal. Thank you, respected RD, for your presentation, especially on safety, next generation aviation professional and CORSIA. As we witnessed that in the address of Mr. President this morning, this 2018 traffic is 4.3 billion, And we're expecting double by another 15 years based on the last our experience since 1970. So we people in aviation fairly needs to improve infrastructure, equipment, regulation, and human resource and training. How we are going to accommodate all this traffic in the future. It's our responsibility, it's our accountability in the aviation fraternity. In terms of Nepal, especially in the NGAP, Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal has participated in the face-to-face NGAP program in various colleges to attract the young generation in aviation, civil aviation. More than 3,000 young students have attended the NGAP program conducted by CA Nepal, Airlines Operator of Association of Nepal, has also supported our efforts for NGAP. We have established, in collaboration with the private party, Airbus Museum, Aircraft Museum, and where more than 100,000 students has visited last year. And the same has been conducted this year, and more and more students attracting in this area. In regards to the safety, Nepal has accorded highest priority in safety. That has been achieved better performance in the recent past and endeavoring its level best for the improvement of prevailing aviation safety with the support from all partners like ICAO, Coast Guard South Asia, EU, EASA, DGCA France, etc. We have prepared Nepal Aviation Safety Plan 2018-2022 with guidance from ICAO Global Aviation Safety Plan. Operational risks have been identified in our operational and mitigation means have been developed to address these issues. And to cope with the traffic growth in the future, we need to implement Global Aviation Safety Plan, Global Air Navigation Plan, as well as Global Aviation Security Plan. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Francine Zimmerman. I'm from the Swiss Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun Mishra, for the great presentation. I just want to come back to one of the key messages you said when you spoke about the future of aviation. You said the drones are here. We need to prepare ourselves to be enablers. And this is for me a very strong message because, I mean, it's not natural speaking from my point of view, for a civil aviation authority to deal with drones and new technology. Is really something new. We need new competencies. We need to see it in another way. We need a risk-based approach. It's very different to what we know in manned aviation. So having this message from ICAO, I think it's very powerful, and I'm really confident that working together with ICAO, we will achieve very soon this point. Thank you.
I think the President, this is his very favorite topic. I mean, he will tell you something about this.
No, and that is what I discussed with the ministers. When you talk of Ministry of Aviation or Civil Aviation Authority, the stakeholders, you have airports, air navigation service providers, airlines, and their personnel, manufacturers. But as we have seen with the drone technology, the use is outside our traditional environment. It's outside the airport. It's within cities. And ICAO faced a challenge. We got to start talking about this a little bit late. Why? Because we've always thought of ourselves as being ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, that sets standards for international operation. And my friend here from Trinidad and Tobago, we had a discussion on this. So for a very long time, we said, okay, drones is within countries. It's none of our business. But our approach has to change. ICAO should be the International Civil Aviation Organization that provides a platform for its member states and industry to address challenges of civil aviation globally. Not international civil aviation, but civil aviation globally. Because when there are new issues, drone is just one of them. Air taxis, the use of aviation in other aid. They will come to the Civil Aviation Authority they'll ask you, what do they do about this? Some of them don't even know they have to come to you. And when they come to you, you don't even know how to engage with them because maybe you do not have regulations, you don't know what to say. And it involves maybe some other ministry, but there is no way, as long as something is airborne, and it's not an insect, it's not a bird, if there are issues with it, your governments will direct them to you, and you must have an answer. You must have a way to engage with them. You must have a way to relate with them. And importantly, you cannot stifle innovation. But you have to ensure that the operations remain safe, that the public, the users, they've accustomed to the high level of safety that aviation provides. So you also want to do that. And if you come to ICAO, we cannot tell you that is not an international operation. We have to be able to provide you some guidance. So when I talked about my interest in this, I've engaged the council on this. We'll be having a lot of discussions on this matter. That we have to have a new way of regulatory engagement in the age of rapid innovation. It does not mean that we have to regulate everything. In fact, maybe we don't need to regulate in something. But we have to provide a platform and a framework to exchange ideas, best practices, so that we can collaborate and coordinate in addressing most of the issues that we'll be faced with. Drone is one of them. Artificial intelligence is another. Blockchain technology is another. There are so many things that is coming on the horizon that it's only it will be the responsibility of the civil aviation sector to handle because nobody else can do that. And we have the history of being able to handle global issues, global challenges in a very rapid manner because we've been very effective in doing that. So we cannot fail our member states, our economies, our industries. We have to be there. Most of those actors are non-traditional actors, and we'll see more of them. Most of those responsibilities are new competencies. So we're talking about we need 620,000 pilots. But we need in the civil aviation administration not only those who can regulate, but who have new competencies to be able to address some of these issues. So when the US talked about, you mentioned engaging and catching them young. That is the whole essence also of the youth competition that I've asked that we should organize leading to the assembly. It's not about the competition itself. It's about, once again, generating the interest. Because we're in a competition. We're in competition with other industries. And there are new skill sets that are required. Otherwise, our sector will become not very attractive to the young people. They'll rather go to the stock exchange and make some money very quickly. We have to be able to engage them. And without passion, you cannot go far in innovation. It was passion that drove the Wright brothers. We live on passion. We live on the love. We have to be able to inculcate that. So a number of these issues will come forward. Let me also mention one subject, commercial space flights. It's happening. Do we have to set regulations immediately, international rules and standards? Maybe not. But at the next assembly, as I mentioned during the Air Navigation Conference, we'll be asking the assembly to recognize that ICAO will have to take its responsibility in this area. It doesn't mean we have to start setting standards, but at least we have to assume that we have a responsibility to ensure that down the line, the standards of safety that we are now accustomed to will be maintained. How that will take place very quickly, I don't know, but the policy aspect of deciding that is something for us that we have to pay particular attention to is necessary.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Francis Regis, Trinidad and Tobago. As Dr. Aliu, Benard indicated, we've had a conversation because I am of the view that the name needs to change. I know it's a very, very controversial idea. In the paper that I presented at the conference, it indicated that after 75 years, it's time for change. The main issue here is that I believe that as the industry evolves, the body would need to handle matters other than international aviation. And another issue, other than drones, that was discussed with Dr. Aliu, is the issue of domestic aviation and domestic aviation activities. Because strictly speaking, the annexes are concerned primarily with international civil aviation. Most countries would apply the international requirements to domestic operation, and we do in Trinidad. Our rules, we have one set of rules, so that you find the small operator who is simply doing operations to the rigs and to the heliports. They have to comply with the same set of rules as any other operator doing international operation. They find it extremely restrictive and expensive. We have to make some changes, but we have to find some guidance in terms of how that will be done. It's just one of a number of areas that I believe is necessary for us in aviation to give some consideration to. Yes, I know the name will not change, but I've put it out there anyway. I think, and primarily because we just need to rethink how we conceptualize aviation going forward. We're going to leave this, I'm gray and bold, I always say that, and we're going to leave this thing here for the younger generation. A little success in Trinidad and Tobago, very small country. There are more than 450 young persons on the register holding pilot's license that don't have jobs. Maintenance engineering training is pretty much well and alive in Trinidad as well. And we do have a very good air traffic control training center. We've done training for more than 60 years now, and I dare say it's one of the better aviation training centers in the world for air traffic control. Just my 2 cents. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mishra, for the presentation. I think what I understood from the theme, which is of special interest for the President, that the ICAO is going to regulate the big drones, but the smaller ones will be left to the countries themselves. I think the drone issue is much more important, and the ICAO should play a more significant role on regulating this issue because, first of all, for example, for my country, these flight checks for navigational aids is expensive. For example, now drone technology is providing such services for lower costs, but they are not certified for all of these areas for the calibration of these aids, but for some of them they may have received. This is one issue that requires, of course, ICAO intervention. The second is I think that the concept of safety should be revisited. It's not only the safety of those guys in the aircraft, in the manned aircrafts flying, but also the safety of those in the ground. For example, if a drone is just dropping somewhere, crashing in a residential area, bringing damage or causing casualties, so it means that those who put it in the sky are also responsible for the safety of those living on the ground. As we are, for example, putting a car without a brake on the street. So no one can say that, okay, my hands are off. With these, I think that ICAO should take more robust role in for regulating these issues. Thank you very much.
Good evening. This is the Seychelles delegation. And thank you very much, Mr. Mishra and Dr. Aliu, for the presentations. The need for innovation, I would just like to stress that I come from a small island state with only 90,000 people. And with respect to no country being left behind, some of these issues about innovation and the changes we'll need are particularly acute for us. I can easily envision a future in Seychelles where 1,000 drones could be operating in our airspace. But our civil aviation is already hugely under-resourced just to manage the traditional aircraft and to meet all the ISOPs. So as was mentioned in the presentation by, I think, the gentleman from Boeing, how the scale and the volume of some of the flying that we'll see will exceed human intervention. You mentioned AI and you mentioned drones. I think for certain small states, both of those will be very acute very quickly. So there is actually a need to move fast. And because the cost of drones is dropping and the cost of entering into that sort of business is much lower than a traditional airline, you can imagine states that are already under-resourced will be the first ones to encounter this challenge just because it'll spread quickly that way. And so those were my comments, which was don't forget the small island states and the speed at which ICAO can provide guidance and the need for change and rapid development for how small countries will have to meet these challenges as, just as quickly as the big ones, I think is an important point to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertrand de Lacombe from France. First, thank you very much to the Indian authorities for this summit, and thank to President Aliu and to Arun for their views. For me, I would say that the main word regarding these challenges we have to face is the one of cooperation. I think that it is absolutely crucial, and I would like to take two examples. First, regarding the drones. In France, we have established in 2015 a National Council for Drones. It's a public-private council, if I can say it. We try to associate all the branches of the government which are interested in the regulation of drones: Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Justice. And we associate also all the industry, the manufacturers, but also the users and the ones who would like to provide some services for leisure or for commercial activities, and even the insurance companies, for example. And so we try to evolve at the same rate, if possible, because as you said, Arun, it's more and more difficult all together. And so this is the first example of the need of cooperation within the country. And also we need more and more cooperation, I think, between our states and regarding safety. I would like to raise this opportunity to remind that yes, in Europe we have created the European agency, which is represented here. The agency, and I think this is very important, is not an independent agency. It's an executive agency working under the control of the European Commission, which is here, and under the final control of the member states. This is very, very important. This is an issue we discussed, President Aliu, 2 years ago in your country. So, well, I think that more and more it will be very difficult for one state, even a big state, to imagine that he will be able to regulate alone. We have to find the right way of association with private partners, with other countries. And well, at the end of the day, I would like to thank you, President Aliu, for the NCLB initiative. I think that it was a very, very important stimulation, if I can say it, for more cooperation and for more coordinated cooperation, which is absolutely essential. Thank you.
just like to add about cooperation, which France has mentioned. And as President mentioned, that we need to find and seek and engage with non-traditional partners, people who are not the airport operators, the airlines, or the air service providers, traffic service providers. So I just wanted to give you an interesting example how things are working out because we are not engaging. 5 years back, Google decided to put balloons 80,000 feet above to provide internet services and other services with her and all that. And they worked on the project in a very professional manner like they always do. But one thing they missed out is they need permission from the government whose airspace they are using. They didn't have any clue that even 80,000 feet above, the airspace belongs to a country and they have to take permission. So this engagement is very important, especially for innovative things which is happening, because we don't engage with these companies. Unless we do that, we cannot work together. So this time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Nair William Singh, Director General, Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. Just a couple of points. When we looked at the presentation as it pertains to the next generation of aviation professionals, we see where there are some regions that will have a deficit and there are some that have a surplus. And I think one of the things that we really need to condition our minds to and our mindset is how we can ease some of the barriers and the restrictions of the movement of aviation professionals across states. Now, I know this ventures into some other areas, but for our aviation industry worldwide to continue to prosper and to succeed, I think that's one of the things that we need to look at, the ease of the movement of aviation professionals. And just my last comment, statement was made about the No Country Left Behind initiative. And again, Dr. Aliu, I want to thank you. I know that this was certainly your brainchild, and it really has proven to be a very effective initiative. Jamaica has benefited significantly from this in assisting us to move our EI into the 83% effective implementation. And we're really committed to that in our region. Francis is here from Trinidad in our CASAS region to continue that thrust to move the CASAS states into that. So, and the Ministry of Civil Aviation and the Government of India, thank you very much as well for this opportunity to visit India and participate.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Boula, for hosting us here today, and President Aliu for being with us today. I just wanted to pick up on the question of personnel. We have already been starting to feel in Europe the problem of shortage, particularly of flight crew, and last 2 years. And we learned that flight crew are very mobile people. And they go, if there is a shortage around the world, they will go to the place where they make the most money. And it is going to be a collective issue, I would say, for all our airlines to manage this situation. And we've seen already some taking initiatives to promote the profession. They will have to think of making it more attractive to the generation of millennials who have other expectations. But also one issue that is being taken up is the question of having more female pilots in the cockpit. And there is a huge potential, as there's only about 5% of flight crew is female today. So they are really actively looking in this direction. Maybe just also on the point of cooperation, we have always been very big supporters of the No Country Left Behind initiative. We've been trying to increase our contribution in financial terms, but also, of course, in practical terms, because we see indeed that ICAO is leading the global safety effort, and more than safety, of course. But it's not only about setting rules, it's also about the follow-up. And the follow-up, it can come from ICAO in the form of guidance and so on, but it also has to be done between the members of ICAO. And we have learned in Europe that working together among neighbors is a very efficient way of working, and we see more and more around the world that this is happening. And we try to support it with projects where we have people from EASA, people from our member states engaging with other parts of the world on safety, on the environment, whether it's in Africa, whether it's ASEAN or other regions. So I just wanted to reconfirm our commitment to this because these are really ongoing challenges to keep safety at the highest level and to implement CORSIA are challenges for all of us, and if we do it together, it will be so much more effective. Thank you.
So one of the problems in what we see in many states is that the relationship between the training organization and the industry. So there is very little relationship which exists between the training organization and the industry which will use these people. So our role as administrators or regulators is to establish a good linkage between the training organization and the industry, so that right now what's happening in many states, you get a CPL license and you can just hang around waiting for a job, spending a lot of money. But if there is an understanding that if you are a good CPL, you will be taken in, and the regulator facilitates this, then a situation will turn better, and also it will become more attractive to young people to join this.
One of the things that was addressed up there is you talked specifically about the maintenance, pilots, and air traffic, but that goes even deeper as you were talking about the regulatory oversight, and France was talking about the corporations and reaching agreement. Many countries have a difficulty of finding not just experience to fly the airplanes, but then for the regulatory agencies to have that expertise to provide that oversight. And as we're all facing this risk and this need for additional personnel to operate our systems, we start to look at each other and other options to provide that regulatory oversight and framework. But it's important as we do that, that we ensure that we're all speaking from the same language. We all are speaking from the same regulations. But even more is when something does go wrong in the system, do we have an understanding of whose responsibility it was, how that responsibility is carried out, and how those changes or those identification of the problems are fixed. And so as we're trying to find resources and new ways in doing the system, we need to make sure that all of our basic needs are also met in that process.
In fact, in India, maybe because of the huge population and then it's quite educated and is fairly aware about the opportunities which are available in the various aspects of the aviation. Here in India, we as a regulator find more, shortcomings in terms of retaining the technical manpower. In fact, my view will be on the issue of secondment. Probably we can be more flexible, where between the industry and the regulator, there can be, of course, we should firewall that safety and then conflict of interest is not compromised any place. But maybe ICAO also in the long term should slightly see that a bit with flexibility. Because at this moment I've seen, because having faced ICAO audit in the last around 15 months twice, so this becomes it's quite an issue. Just giving one example, like Indian Meteorological Department, This is one of the oldest institutions and highly reputed institutions in the country. And then in fact, they provide us the meteorological services in the country. And then we take, DGCA takes people on deputation from them. In fact, they come with us, we pay them, the DGCA pays them, and then they only report to the regulator and not to their parent department. But of course, the advantage remaining with the parent department is they can continue to train there, they continue to open to and exposed to all the latest technologies which are available. But there also I was seeing, ICAO has some reservations there. So similarly, like say, on the navigation side, now this, there's no conflict of interest and the service providers and the regulators being separate. Now in DGCA will be licensing the ATCOs, which was not in India so far. Again, for technical manpower, they're the only providers of that manpower. So we'll be drawing the manpower from them. But again, I think ICAO may be having some issues there. We totally appreciate that. But then enabling in addition to that, educating your people, making them aware the opportunities in the aviation sector so that more and more people come this side. At the same time, your regulator should have, all the regulatory and, surveillance manpower with them. So this is one issue which I feel is quite a, important issue. We should be conscious to that. And if something can be thought of about that, that will be, I think, quite helpful. Secondly, on CORSIA, India will be implementing that from 2027. Not in the pilot phase, not in the first phase, but all the, the milestones which the ICAO has kept for 2018, we have completed those all within time. But what we imagine is 3-4 major challenges will be coming, which we should be very conscious. One is on the players which are non-scheduled side. India has a huge number of them, and many of them will be having annual emissions of 10,000 tons or more, which is the limitation for them. So monitoring them on the line of, as the, my friend has made a point that, for the domestic regulators and international regulators, you have the same kind of regulations. So here again, if we can have a slightly more friendly and less, overwhelming format for monitoring, that will be again very helpful. And then I think the way we are thinking that on, non-conventional aviation fuels, that probably is not happening that fast, which was supposed to happen. So again, other constraint will continue to happen. More and more will depend upon the market-based initiatives rather than that non-conventional energy sources. And other is a huge challenge will be coming when all the data starts flowing is on the data management. That will be a huge issue. There's some, this engaging with the agencies for buying the credits, carbon credits, then canceling those, then deregistering. This is quite an issue. And then even now, as I said, we will be only entering into this one, implementing it from the second phase to 2027. But we still feel that this is going to quite an issue. And then is the provider of the carbon credits. That is again, I think, will be how many players will be there in the market, how availability of this one will be there, and at what cost they will be coming. The few issues at this moment is quite early. Of course, the things will move, and then maybe many new innovations are coming there. The players will develop, market will develop. But at this stage, a few issues which we thought this may may be issues in the future, which we should be conscious of. I think drones we have already discussed. And the fourth issue, this is one I think the point is that many times when we have to approve the foreign training organization or foreign maintenance organizations is but complicated. Is there any, I think one of the states has raised that issue. So that is why we have flagged. Any comment there on that issue? The fourth one which is in the slide. I think drones we have already discussed. Anything? Next point. So this is again quite an issue, which is particularly for smaller states. It is quite an issue. So again, on this issue also, we invite the comments and any suggestions, the way forward.
Thank you, sir, for bringing this issue here, especially for the country like Bhutan and small countries where you don't have the capacity to have this investigation, where you need a highly qualified and equipments and all those things. So in that case, what we thought is that we want to sign an MOU with the country who has the full established AIB. So I think for smaller countries, it's not necessary to establish the AIU. Thank you, sir.
Francis Regis, Director General, Roundtable Civil Aviation Authority. This particular item is one that is dear to me and also a very interesting area. The establishment of regional accident investigation bodies is one that I support. My challenge with it is that it does not fully address the USOP question of responsibility. Responsibility for accident investigation remains with the state. So the challenge becomes a regional body. You have a body where, let's say it's in the Caribbean area, and there is an accident. The accident occurs in whatever country, I don't want to call a name because the way the things go these days. So the accident occurs in a country, and that Civil Aviation Authority now has responsibility for the accident investigation. The regional body can provide some assistance, but at the end of the day, the state remains responsible. One of the things I'm not sure that the concept addresses is the issue of confidentiality and control of the reporting. The other issue with respect to it is the human resource and the transfer of training and knowledge and technology. Because if the accident is with a large aircraft, then the state still has to rely on state of manufacture, state of design, for the analysis of any point of failure. If you want to determine a point of failure as a result of an accident, you still have to go back to the manufacturer. I do not know how the regional body will address the issues associated with copyright and the responsibility of states of design. I don't think they're going to share that information with regional bodies. So it's a good concept, but there are some very, very gray areas as far as I'm concerned with respect to how it's going to be rolled out and how it's going to be operationalized.
Let me address the issue you raised, Francis. Same questions you are raising were the same questions raised with respect to the regional safety oversight organizations. The responsibility to provide safety oversight is that of the state. The regional safety oversight organizations have been established on the basis of some agreement in which you can get support as a state from your regional safety oversight organizations to provide some activities. That does not take away your responsibility as the Director General of the country, but you get this support. In the case of accident investigation, as a matter of fact, Annex 13 provides that you can delegate the investigation of an accident to somebody else on the basis of an agreement. So you can either delegate it to If you're the state of occurrence, to the state of operator. You can delegate to states who may have majority of the people on board that flight. You can delegate to the state of the manufacturer to do. So there is provision for that already in Annex 13. That doesn't, so you can also delegate the responsibility to investigate an accident to a regional accident investigation in which you are a member. Of course, you have to meet the requirements of providing the information submitting reports to ICAO. So you can work around all that. What is key is that where it is easy to justify at the national level to establish a regional to establish a civil aviation administration, it's a little bit more difficult to establish an accident investigation bureau that is waiting around for the next accident to happen, which may not. So, and as you mentioned, today is Boeing 777, tomorrow is Boeing 737. You may not have the capability. So sharing the resources, taking advantage of the economic states and the synergies that are there is something that can be useful for very small countries. Even big countries try to still achieve some economic scales by ensuring that the accident investigation body is not focused only on aviation, but also on other modes of transport. So there are different formats, but you can work around all those issues. You should not be discouraged. If you have neighboring states that you want to establish a joint operation for accident investigation, you can work around on the basis of the existing MOUs and the provisions of the standards in Annex 13.
Any further comment on this issue? If there is no other issue, then I think it is 6 p.m., so we can close it on time. I think maybe the only session we'll be closing on time since morning, so I'm thankful to all of you. In fact, always when we sit together and discuss the issues which are common, so it is always a learning, it's a new issues we learn. And we are very thankful to ICAO, the format they have got. It gives us quite opportunity to sit together and discuss on the issues of common interest. So thank you very much all my colleagues. And more than that, thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Arun Mishra, for coming and guiding us and then giving your inputs, valuable inputs on that. Thank you, gentlemen, and my best wishes. Thank you.
Good evening. Now we have a dinner at the ballroom, which is being hosted by Government of Maharashtra. And there's, I believe, a cultural program also for you all to enjoy. Thank you. See you there.